All right, this video is part 2 of, I don't know how many it's going to be, following it on death, hell, and the soul. If you haven't watched the previous one, number 1, do so at this time, because some of this may be related to that one. There's going to be a few more videos on this topic related to death, hell, and the soul for the Seventh-day Adventists and some of the Bible verses that they like to use. So some of those are going to be followed with, the next one's going to be actually on what Christ says, where some people are going to go, where they are going to go, and for how long. And then I'm going to follow that with some typical Adventist verses that Adventists like to use to talk about things, such as the rich man and Lazarus, Moses being resurrected, etc. Now, there's 4 good examples in the New Testament. Remember what I said in the previous video about the Old Testament? You haven't watched the video, watch it. There are really 4 good examples to prove the existence of an immaterial self in the New Testament. One is, well, defeating Adventism, number 108, the thief on the cross. Jesus made a promise where he was going and the thief was going that day. And that was to the abode of God. Then, like I said, the rich man and Lazarus. Coming up, future video. But I'm going to focus on 3 of them here. 2 Corinthians 5:8, Philippians 1:23, and Revelation 6:9. You're going to see those verses here in a minute. So what I have to do is, I want you to think about this. In each of these cases that you're going to see, in Corinthians, Philippians, and Revelation, it's going to be proven that death is not sleep. That there is a conscious existence, or an expected conscious existence after death. But death, like the thief on the cross, results in an immediate ushering into the presence of the heavenlies. So the context of these verses that I'm using here, it's all about Christians. So I'm not saying that, and again, that's reserved for a future video, the unbeliever is going to have a promise too, but it's not going to be the abode with God. So that one's coming up. But these, as I'm talking about here, are to the believers, or about the believers, as you'll see in Revelation. The video, like I said, that's following this is going to be Jesus talking about unbelievers, and where their souls, their eternal existence is going to go, and for how long. So I'm going to show from the 28 Beliefs book, this horrible book on 28 wacky untrue beliefs. I'm going to show actually what they say in here about a person who's going to return to dust. And their spirits don't go to God, is in essence what this is going to say. Now, here's what I want to say. So I'm going to refute the 28 Beliefs book and what it says. Now, here's what I want to say about this issue, which I don't think I really have done previous videos like this, in that, in my defeating of Adventism, okay, maybe Daniel videos, Adventism, I'm going to say this is not a salvation issue. This one here. Some of the ones following, I think, will be, and I'll talk about those when they come. This video here, I mean, you can be, and I'm going to say more on this at the end. You can be a bona fide Christian and not believe in the soul leaving the body at death and going to a heavenly place. It's like baptism. You can believe you can be baptized by sprinkling, by immersion, and maybe not even baptized at all. And that's not a salvation issue either. Whether you think the earth is 6,000 years old or 6 gazillion years old, not a salvation issue either, and on and on and on we go. And I'll show you some essentials at the end. So anyway, we're going to start here with that said. I'm going to do this again at the end, by the way. With that said, 28 Beliefs book, and I want you to look with me here. There it is, copyright 2018, and I'm going to look at page 395 and 396. These are the 2 sections I'm going to deal with. The one in the middle about the abode of the dead, that's the video that's going to follow this. So let's start here with the first one on page 395. The person returns to dust. Look at the red underlined word. Using the word soul refers to a whole person. Or it could return to affections and emotions, which I totally agree with. And then it goes on to say about, Genesis 2:7, that he became Adam, right? Became a living soul. And then it says that death, the inverse takes place. The dust of the ground minus the breath yields a dead person, a dead soul without any consciousness. And they cite Psalm 146:4. Then they basically say the same thing on Ezekiel 18:20. The soul that sins shall die. Now, here we go again. When you use an antiquated translation, albeit it's a fine translation, but unless you understand it, and Adventists, they either understand it and are being deceptive and using it to force their own doctrines on it, or they don't understand this translation. But look here. Here's the KJV and ISV. Psalm 146:4. He returneth to the earth. They return to the ground. That just means the grave. You're going to the grave. How about Ezekiel 18:20? KJV says, the soul that sinneth shall die. And the ESV, basically, the soul that sins shall die. The person that sins shall die is what it is. Now look at Genesis 2:7. KJV, and man became a living soul. No, man became a living creature. Remember what I said about the KJV. Only use this book when you are having Bible discussions with people who are, about 400 years old. Then use the KJV. Now, so I have really no disagreement with what the SDA say about Psalm 146:4, Ezekiel 18:20, because death means it's the physical death of the person. That's the context of the verses. So the verses that they cited don't really tell the whole picture. Genesis 2:7, it's not soul, it's a living creature, as you see. Adventists build doctrines off a 400-year-old translation. In this case, the important part here is not what's actually stated in the 28 Beliefs book, but what's missing in the 28 Beliefs book. But what is presented here like it's a complete exhaustive search on death. They only told half the picture. They are correct. A person is called a soul in some cases. 27 souls perished when the ship went down. We do it in English, but it doesn't always mean that, and we're going to see that. They fail to address the full scope of the facts. So let's look here again on page 395, 396. Look what it says here. The Spirit returns to God. Read the underlined text. In the Bible, neither the Hebrew nor the Greek term for spirit, ruach or pneuma, refers to an intelligent entity capable of conscious existence apart from the body. Really? Is this true? Oh, let's test this statement. Let's test it right here with Matthew 27:50. Death of Christ on the cross. You're familiar with this, right? Jesus said, my God, why have you forsaken me? And then Matthew 27:50. Jesus cried out again with a loud voice and yielded up his spirit. Look at the Greek text here. He yielded up the ghost, right? That's KJV. He yielded up his spirit. It's pneuma. So Jesus did something with his spirit. Now, what I am going to do here is I'm going to use, for this entire video, this English-Greek lexicon that I haven't used before. I'm using it this time on purpose because I see it referenced all over the place in Seventh-day Adventist literature. It's obviously an Adventist-approved source, so I want you to look here. And here it is, absolutely Adventist approved. I found 53 citations, going back to 1958, and some are just several months old. So this is used all the time. So remember what we were talking about. Jesus yielded up his spirit. So let's go to page 156 of this lexicon. And here is Jesus, it's yielding, giving up. Look what the Greek says in the first red underlined text. To dismiss or release someone or something from a place or one's presence. And then look at the purple text. Emit, give up. Jesus sent his spirit. This proves Jesus had a spirit in addition to his body, just as he sent his spirit to the Father while his body was dead on the cross and then dead in the tomb. There was a body in the tomb, there was a body on the cross that was lifeless. But Jesus, as a spirit, as he told the thief on the cross, today you will be with me in paradise, was in paradise. The existence of Jesus with the Father and his dead body on the cross and in the tomb are two different things, which the Adventist book just told us can't happen. The only thing you as a Seventh-day Adventist could say is, when Jesus died on the cross, he no longer existed. But that's not what he said in Matthew 27:50. But there is another verse we can look at, and we're going to look here. Revelation 6:9. We're going to read along here for a few of them. Revelation 6:9, when he opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar in heaven the souls of those who had been slain. Look at that again. We have souls that were killed for the word of God and for the witness they bore. Already we got a problem here, right? We've got souls in heaven in the throne room of God who had been killed. Verse 10, they cried out, these souls are talking. And they're talking to who? O sovereign Lord, holy and true. How long before you will judge and avenge our blood on those who dwell on earth? These souls are alive in heaven under the altar and talking to God and pleading. Verse 11, then they were each given a white robe. Souls were given a white robe and told to rest a little longer until the number of their fellow servants and brothers would be complete, who were to also be killed, you can see, as they themselves had been. Look at the word souls. There it is again. Psyche. Souls. Now you've just seen two accounts from the Bible. The very thing the Seventh-day Adventist book says can't exist. We got souls in heaven under the altar talking to God. And the verses tell us these people were killed. Their bodies are somewhere on the earth. Their souls are in heaven under the altar. And Jesus essentially did the same thing when he said, Father, I release my spirit, and he gave up the ghost. Dead Jesus on the cross in the tomb, his spirit was somewhere else. 28 Beliefs book is the big lie. Revelation 6:9, Matthew 27:50 proves it. Now, let's move to the teachings of the Apostle Paul. The Apostle teaches the existence of an immaterial self apart from the body. And it's what we as Christians should look forward to. Let's read here. 2 Corinthians 5. Look at, the title of the section is Our Heavenly Dwelling. Look at verse 1. For we know that if the tent that is our earthly home is destroyed, look at this language here. He's using the body as a tent that can be destroyed. Then he says, we have a building from God, a house not made with hands, eternal in heaven. And then he talks about our dwellings, and let's look at 2 Corinthians 5:8. Yes, we are of good courage, and we would rather be away from the body or the tent and at home with the Lord. So when I read verse 8, I'd rather be away from the body and at home with the Lord. What does that mean? You know what the Apostle Paul just said? I'd rather be dead now and then in heaven with God. But he didn't use the word dead, did he? See what I mean about Seventh-day Adventists giving you the impression that they looked up every occurrence of death and then they report on it and show what death really means? Because we just saw in 2 Corinthians 5:8 the Apostle Paul is talking about death but doesn't use the word death. To be away from the body and to be present with the Lord. This is the kind of type of amateurish scholarship you get in Seventh-day Adventism. It's either amateurish or it's deceptive. And I'm going to go towards deceptive. Today, Adventists are much more sophisticated, and they have a lot of the same commentaries and things that I have around me, and they know. Period. It's deceptive. Now let's look at the Greek here, 2 Corinthians 5:8. To be absent from the body and to be at home with the Lord. We're going to look at both these Greek words. You can see which one first and which one we're going to look at second. So what does to be absent mean? And here's the Greek word in the Arndt and Gingrich, and it means what? It's a movement from one area to another, to take a long journey. You see it says to leave, to get away, to be absent from the body. Death is what? It's a movement. It's a journey. And then it says to be present with the, what's to be present mean? It means to be in a familiar place, to be at home. And you can see it's 2 Corinthians 5:6, and underneath that, the underlined for 8, and it says in the same sense as verses 6 and 8. 8 means to be at home, to be absent from, to be dead in the body is to be at home. To be dead in the body is to take a trip to go home to God. That's what the Greek means. You just saw it. So the Apostle Paul taught death without even using the word death. That's when he said absent from the body. And is to take a journey. And the journey is to go home with God. Now I'm going to show where the Apostle Paul teaches again the soul exists apart from the physical body. Look here. Philippians 1:18 to 25. Let's go just we can read start in 21. But I put the other verses here in case you want to stop the video and you can read it. Verse 21. For to me to live is Christ and to die is gain. If I am alive in the flesh, that means fruitful labor for me. Yet which shall I choose? I cannot tell. Verse 23. I am hard pressed between the two. My desire is to depart and be with Christ, for that is far better, but to remain in the flesh is more necessary on your account. Just as the Apostle Paul did in 2 Corinthians 5:8. He talks about death without actually using the word death. Verse 23, he says he uses depart, not death. He'd rather depart to be with Christ. He didn't say die. And we're going to have to look at that word depart. Again, depart is not sleep, and it's not death. It's something else. Let's see what the Greek is in the Arndt and Gingrich, the Adventist favorite lexicon. I think it is their favorite, because I think they cite it more than almost any other. Here's depart, and we're going to look at that Greek word right there on page 67. And what does depart mean? It means depart. It means return. You can see it's a euphemism for death, as in Philippians 1:23. So it's not death. The Apostle Paul says, I'd rather return to the Lord. Just like 2 Corinthians 5:8, Philippians 1:23 discusses death without using the term death. And neither shows that dying is like going to sleep. Both verses show that death means you're going somewhere else. You're taking a journey. I love how the Greek words say that. Just as Jesus promised the thief on the cross in Luke, he said, today you will be with me in paradise. Both of them were taking a journey, just like the Apostle Paul told us. Now I want to wrap it up here with this verse. Look at this verse with me here. A new commandment I give you. This is Christ, by the way, let me stop here. This is Christ giving a new commandment, a new law. This is not the Ten Commandments. This is a new commandment from Christ. So by the way, Seventh-day Adventists, if you say, we keep the Ten Commandments, you ignore this one, because this is a new one from Christ. And let's go back to it again. And what does Christ say? That you love one another just as I've loved you, and you are to love one another. As I said, there can be bona fide Christians who do not believe the position that I just explained here. And that's fine. I want you to look at what I regard, at least, like I put on the slide at this time, essentials of the faith. Deity of Christ, and I'm going to put hell on this one, and that video is coming. Resurrection, the gospel, monotheism, virgin birth, etc. You can be a Christian and not believe what I just presented in this video. But what I just said comes with so many caveats. You better have the right Jesus. You can't just say, I named Jesus. I'm a Seventh-day Adventist and I believe in Jesus. You've got the wrong Jesus. You got the Mormons, you got the wrong Jesus. Jehovah's Witnesses, you got the wrong Jesus. On and on. Christadelphians, you got the wrong Jesus. Whole history of people with the wrong Christ, who name the name of Christ but the wrong Christ. So everything I'm saying comes with so many caveats, I just can't spend the time to do it. If so, you're self-deceived. And if you're not, well then you know who I'm talking to. You know that you have the right Christ, you know you have the right gospel, you know you believe in the deity of Christ and the Trinity and the virgin birth, etc. So I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to really those that may be self-deluded and unbelievers. But if you are truly a believer, and you know you passed that test, we can disagree on this. And that's fine. But the reason I'm making this video is Adventism doesn't allow for this kind of disagreement that I'm talking about now. Because it comes as a package. And that package is right here. And it's 28 beliefs. The church manual, the current church manual, as of the making of this video, states all candidates for baptism are first asked to affirm the 28 beliefs. Once they get that affirmation, they take their baptismal vows. This book here is your sealing and your one-way ticket to hell with a Bible in your hand, a KJV Bible in your hand. Because this book here teaches damnable heresies. And so I know it teaches about, it's not even soul, you don't even have a soul in Seventh-day Adventism. But Adventism is a package and comes with all these false beliefs. You can't approach Adventism like a smorgasbord menu. You accept it all, or you should leave the church. That's why I'm making the video for you Seventh-day Adventists, to show, one, your church is teaching wrong, and you already know from all my videos, you have a false Jesus, you have a twice cursed gospel, you are marching to hell with a Bible in your hand.